Come on, let's welcome Chapel Downtown. Good morning, everybody. Good morning. Glad to have you with us. Welcome downtown. Glad to have you with us. Thanks so much. You can be seated. You can be seated. I want to look in the back of the room at the camera and say good morning, Chapel Downtown. We're so excited about what God's doing in the heart of the city. I know you had a great weekend last week, and I was just walking around in our space in Scott's Addition yesterday, and man, it's getting close, and we're so excited about what God's going to do. Before we dive into the message, I just wanted to give you one update, and that is that on Friday, 161 students left for winter retreat. How many think that's pretty cool? And this is a picture of them right here on the wall, and I just love this. So right now, my daughter FaceTimed my wife yesterday and said she shot a gun for the first time. So we need to just pray this weekend. I'm telling you, pray. But they've had an incredible Friday night and Saturday hearing reports of what God's doing in our students' lives. And their last service is right about right now this morning before they get on the buses and head back home. And I'm so thankful for our youth pastors. I'm so thankful for our team. We had a few team members be at retreat and back for Sunday morning, and a whole bunch of leaders took off work, paid some of their own way, and just are a part of that. Can we just thank all those that serve Next Generation? Can we? Thankful for them and appreciative of them. And it's a big thing in what we do here in the life of our church to make a difference, not just in our own lives, but in generations to come. That's part of the Bible's command to us, to tell God's truth to the next generation. So that's why we prioritize our student ministry and are so excited to hear reports from them in just a few hours of all God did in their lives. So awesome. If you want to take out your note sheet, we're in a series on relationships, and next week we're going to end this series. Really excited. Next week we're going to look at how you deal with mounting problems, challenges, obstacles, enemies next weekend. And then in 2 weeks from today, we're starting a brand new series called Stories. And it's going to look through Jesus' encounters with people that change their life forever. And we're going to actually give us an opportunity to share some stories that are happening in our own church that lead us right into Easter weekend. So that's where we're going as a church. But we've been in this series on relationships that really is designed in the month of February to talk about God's best for us, his plan for us, not just in relationship with him, but in relationship to one another. And we've been looking at the life of King David, who got so many things right, but he got a few things. He had some big oops in his life, didn't he? And some big, oh no, I shouldn't have done that. Some big challenges. And we've been learning from him how to get relationships right and how to honor God. And so we want to talk today. I don't know if you know this. I work usually a couple months ahead on teaching series, and that means that I have sort of all these clippings on the floor at the end. Like, what do I do with all these things? And there's a few more things. I felt like if David was a grandpa and we were sort of sitting on the couch and he was telling us about life and looking back on his own life, I think he'd tell us a few things. And so I want to sort of shotgun those for us this week and bring some things that I think he would say, this is huge in my life. I learned this and God taught me that, and I need to get this down. A major part of David's life was dealing with challenges with people. And we talked last week about Saul, the king, who tried to kill him. And we said, hey, that's a sign that you need to build a boundary in your life if somebody's trying to kill you. All right, should we go back, or do we agree with that? All in favor that if somebody's trying to kill you, you need to build a boundary in your life? Say aye. Okay, yeah. And so that's part of his life. And then towards the end of Saul's life, what happened is he's in a battle. King Saul, the man who was trying to kill David, and he's injured in battle, and a young man comes along, and he thinks he's doing David a favor, and he kills Saul, and then he comes back to report to David this great news. That David, your enemy, has been dealt with. The man who's sought to take your life unjustly, wrongly, has dealt with you wrongly. That man's life has been taken. And you're thinking David would be like, yeah, how great is this? Like, you'd think he'd be like, phew, I don't have to look over my shoulder anymore. But it's crazy what happens. Let me show you it. 2 Samuel chapter 1. Then David said to the young man who brought him the news, where are you from? And he replied, I'm a foreigner, an Amalekite who lives in your land. Where are you from? The guy thinks David's about to give him a giant gift, okay? It's going to be good. Oh, the king wants to know where I'm from. Surely he's going to bestow riches on me. And the Bible says, David says, why were you not afraid to kill the Lord's anointed one? David asks, you've condemned yourself. David said, for you yourself confessed that you killed the Lord's anointed one. Huh? Like, for real? Like, why aren't you happier with this, David? And in this moment, David reveals something to us. When you think he would be excited, he isn't. He's frustrated with the man. And he teaches us this principle because he actually condemns that man to death. And it's sort of confusing. Why wouldn't you be happy that he's avenged the death of your enemy, Saul? What's going on in this whole circumstance and situation? And he teaches us this first principle. Here it is. Guard your associations because you are who you, come on, what? You are who you run with. David says, I don't want a king killer in the palace. Here's why. Because David's about to be king. And he doesn't think that's a wise thing to have a king killer in the palace when you're going to be the new king, right? And this is it's a crazy verse. In fact, we're going to look at it a little bit later this morning on how much David honored Saul and Jonathan, even though they at times didn't do the right things. David had this principle of honor, this principle of letting God's will be done. And he teaches us when this man tries to butter him up and earn his affection, no, you did something you shouldn't have done. I'm not going to play God, take life in my own hand. And he pushes that guy out and removes him. And he teaches us that you got to guard your associations. You got to guard your relationships. How many know our relationships make us or break us, right? And this is what David understands. He's not going to buddy up to a guy who brings devastation into Saul's life. And this is just true in life. If your kids aren't rebellious, but they hang out with a group of rebels, how many know they're going to get labeled rebellious? That's just true, right? Because part of our life isn't just what we do, but our associations, our relationships. And David's always guarding his life, guarding his associations. He's refusing to fall in line with this way of thinking. In fact, in the next chapter, he's going to write a song of all the good things about Saul's life and Jonathan's life. He's a man of honor. He's a man who preserves relationships and brings unity together. And I just want to say this because I think we live in a world that's pretty politically polarized. Does anybody notice that? Or am I bringing news this weekend? I don't think I am, right? But like David says, no, I'm not down with that. I'm not getting into that. I'm going to guard my associations. I'm not going to run with somebody who's taken justice into his own hands. And so David, in fact, much of David's life was spent on the run. I don't even know how many years, but a lot of years before he was king, he's on the run with these mighty men, Saul chasing him down, living in caves. And in fact, even some of his rule in his kingdom, he's chased again by his own son, Absalom. And a lot of David's life isn't just lived on the throne, it's lived in difficult places and difficult challenges. In fact, just maybe write this down this weekend. I think it's true that we shouldn't despise the cave moments of our life. Because kings aren't just shaped in the palace, they're shaped in the school of brokenness. How many know life is filled with challenges and at times it breaks us? Come on, right? And David's life is filled on the run. I mean, so much of his life, he's writing from a cave. He's writing songs. He's writing challenges. He doesn't just have just the rule of the kingdom. He oftentimes is in the cave. And man, I'm convinced that a lot of us, we want the throne, but we don't want the cave. And I just wanted to remind some of us here this weekend that maybe you're in a cave. You're in a challenging moment. You're in a place where you feel some brokenness in your life. Don't despise that moment. God uses the painful moments of our life for his purpose. Anybody glad that God can work through broken things, right? And so, in fact, you know, I think that's how David writes so many songs that have so much power. He writes some great songs of worship. In fact, in the middle of our Bibles, the longest book of the Bible is called Psalms, and it's 150 chapters of songs written. And David writes about half of those, about 75 are written by David. And a bunch of those are like rah-rah psalms. God, you're big. God, you're great. God, you're powerful. And he's got a whole bunch of those. But he also David writes some country western psalms. You know what I mean? I lost my dog, lost my wife, my truck don't work. Come on, how many know? Where are the fans of country music? Come on, just raise your hand. We'll pray for you after service. I mean, David knows, and I think the reason he can write songs with pain is because pain for David isn't a theory, it's a reality. Have you ever noticed that some artists can write a song with pain and sing a song with pain, and the reason it lands in the culture is because it's not just a song that sells. There's something in their life that impacted that way, and almost in the voice of the singer is the pain that's there. David knew that. David knew what it was like to look over his shoulder and wonder if he's going to be killed. David knew what it was like to sleep with one eye open. David knew what it was like to be on the run for nothing he had done wrong, having just been loyal to Saul, beat Goliath. It made Saul insecure, and all of a sudden he tries to kill David, and David goes on the run, and he understands the experience of brokenness. And I want to just remind us this weekend, although I wish brokenness wasn't a part of our world, it is a part of our world, but I do have great news. God uses the broken places of our life, the challenges, the caves in our life to minister to others. 2 Corinthians 1, Paul said, I can comfort others with the comfort I have received from God. God's comforted me, so now I can comfort you. My in-laws, my father-in-law and mother-in-law tried to have children and were unable to. And so they adopted my wife and her brother separately from two different families, but knew the joy of walking through the process and the challenge of walking through the process of adoption. And when both Scott and Katie were adopted, and Katie was about 6 months old, my mother-in-law got pregnant. Can you believe that? And so adopt two babies, all of a sudden you're pregnant. And so they were just thrilled. Man, we went from nothing to 3 overnight. And all of a sudden, at the very end of her pregnancy, there was some concern, and a little boy named Christopher was born, and he had a heart defect. And Christopher was airlifted from Syracuse, New York into Manhattan to have heart surgery. And 2 days later, little Christopher went to be with God. And in fact, when I was dating Katie, the first one of the things on their wall was just a note from, I think it's from your mom to Christopher, or from Christopher to your mom. Sorry, I'll be more thoughtful with my details. But and I remember hearing their story, and my mother-in-law kind of saying, well, we finally gave up on the dream and having kids, and then adopted, and we were perfectly happy. God, why would you let us get pregnant only to let us lose this little life? But what started at their moment of loss, and what started at some people that were good comforters and some people that were bad comforters. By the way, they would tell you something, that if you're comforting people in moments of difficulty, it's okay to just be quiet. Come on, somebody. How many know it's better to shut up than say something than say something and wish you had, okay? Do you know what I'm saying? And so, but they went through all that moment, all the loss there, and what started, it was a ministry that they would have never signed up for, but God used in incredible ways, where they just had access for years now, for 50 years or 45 years since then, of 40 years of just walking people through loss and caring for families in moments of loss. They shared their story on television and in different churches and began to travel. My father-in-law did. And the ministry to families, this key of whether it's infertility or loss, they had no idea what a big just need there was in the church for a couple to come alongside people. And I remember talking to my father-in-law, and he said, I never sat up at night and said, what would be great if I had a ministry to families that were struggling with infertility or loss of a child. He said, I never thought of that, but I know this, that I went through unspeakable pain, and God never wastes my pain. In fact, he has a little book that lists the names of couples that he led to Christ, and over 60 couples, my father-in-law and mother-in-law, led with no faith into professing faith in Jesus Christ because of the loss. How many are thankful this weekend that God doesn't waste our pain, right? He uses our pain. In fact, maybe just write this down so I think it's true. I think healed people heal people. And what David did is he walked through loss, and he walked through pain, and he walked through moments where life didn't make sense. And in the caves, God gave him the song that would unlock people's hearts. In the caves, God gave him the song like, as the deer pants for the water, so my soul pants for you. And all the songs that, where are you, O God? And why'd you do that? And all the songs that have brought us so much comfort. God did that in his life so that he could be a blessing in other people's lives. But you know, it's interesting. David was anointed king in 1 Samuel 16 when he was a teenager, okay? In his mid-teens, he's anointed king, and he doesn't become king for a decade and a half later. Here's actually what the Bible says, 2 Samuel chapter 5. David was 30 years old when he began to reign, and he reigned 40 years in all. So I want you to think of this. David was anointed king as a teenager, but not appointed king. He waited 15 years between what God said to him and what came true. How many know there are waiting seasons in our life? Come on, somebody. Let's just raise our hands and confess all together. How many people here this week in downtown Midlothian, how many people hate to wait? Come on, somebody, you hate to wait. I hate to wait in every area of life. Come on. What kind of internet you want? I want internet that goes quick. When my computer has that little ball that spins, how many know it's just time for a new computer? I can't do it, you know. Man, we don't like to wait in traffic. I want to find which line is the quickest. And then God created for us who hate to wait just a gift called Amazon Prime. I mean, what an amazing gift this is. My kids have just introduced me to DoorDash. Can I get a witness? Used to be you had to do the work of driving to Taco Bell, and now you can just stay home and hide your sins, and they bring it right to your door. It's no better either, but in fact, I remember a couple of years ago, we were at dinner with a couple from the church, and they said, what kind of ice cream do you want for dessert? And I said, well, what kind do you have? And they said, well, any kind you want. And I said, I don't know what that means. And he passed me his phone, and we were close to one of the Amazon distribution centers. He said, just order it, and they'll drive it here. And I said, for real? And then we just ordered it. And then we watched on the app where the driver was driving. It showed us every turn. Every turn as the ice cream got closer and closer. Do you know we sat in Church Hill and ordered ice cream, and 28 minutes later, the messenger of God rang the doorbell. And it was, how many know we got a problem waiting in our culture, don't we? And in fact, our belief is that when we're waiting, there must be something wrong, right? Like when you're waiting, I mean, like if you wait more than 10 seconds at Chick-fil-A, they just give you a lot of stuff. I'm sorry, sir, for the wait. It's like, really? At Burger King, I died in the line, and they didn't even look at me. So I'll take the sandwich. But just write this down here this morning. Here it is. In your waiting, keep on winning. Come on, say that with me. In your what? In your waiting, keep on. I want you to see this. For 15 years at least, David waits between the promise of anointed king and the process of being appointed king. And in that time, he doesn't waste his time. He kills giants. And he marries what the Bible says, Michal, a beautiful woman, okay? He gets married to a beautiful woman, and he gets an internship with a king. And he wins battles, and he amasses wealth. He doesn't just say, well, I'm going to do nothing. I'm going to wait till God does something. And I think we need to see our waiting seasons as not wasted seasons. Because I think in our humanity, in our wait, we're like, this is just a waste of time. God, like this, there's not, but how many know God is doing something even when we are frustrated, right? Even in the seasons when we're like, come on, God, get this together. He is at work accomplishing some things. And David, much of his life is spent before he becomes king. But you know what he learned to do before he became king? He learned what not to do from another king. One person said, God used the Saul outside David to kill the Saul inside David. David learned character. David learned patience. David learned how to treat other people. David learned some lessons. And I think the same is true in our life. Even in the waiting moments of our life, God is teaching us some things. And I know some of us here, we don't like to wait. I mean, some of us don't like to wait in traffic. Some of us don't like to wait in the store. And sometimes we don't like to wait when we feel like God's put something on our heart. And we just don't understand why it's not expedited. Like, God, I really know how this could work and the way it should work and the timing of it. But how many know God's wiser than we are, right? And he's teaching us some things. It's actually amazing because as David is on the run from Saul before he becomes king, Saul is trying to kill him and David's hiding, and Saul is chasing him with 1,000 men. And it's almost a graphic scene, but I'll explain it appropriately, I hope. Saul goes into the cave to go to the bathroom, okay? Don't look at me like that. It's in the Bible. And David and his men are hiding in the cave, and Saul has no idea they're in there. And David's men are, in fact, like to David, like, let's kill him. He's trying to kill us. This is the moment we've been waiting for. He's fallen into our lap. And the Bible actually says that David sneaks up behind Saul and cuts off a part of his garment that Saul doesn't even see David there. And he walks out of the cave, and when he gets a distance from the cave on the other hill, David comes out of the cave and he yells and shouts, "Hey, Saul!" And Saul turns around and he says, "Is that the voice of David, my servant?" And David holds up the garment, the edge of the garment of Saul, and says, "Hey, I just got close. I cut the edge of your garment off." And Saul realizes in this moment, oh my word, David could have just killed me. And in fact, look what he says. And he said to David, "You're a better man than I, for you have repaid me good for evil. Yes, you have been amazingly kind to me today. For when the Lord put me in a place where you could have killed me, you didn't do it. Who else would let this enemy get away when he had him in his power? May the Lord reward you well for the kindness you have shown me today. And now I realize that you are surely going to be king, and that the kingdom of Israel will flourish under your rule." I want you to see this. Even when David had a chance to take Saul's life, and he could have understood it, and his men wanted him to do it, he refused to do that because he believed Saul was God's king. And I want to say this. David understood the principle of honor. Just write this down this weekend. I think we need in our culture to value honor. It's a principle that promotes. And I know this is probably old-fashioned, okay? But I grew up in a day where if you were on the bus and somebody that was older than you walked in and you had a seat, my mom would look at me and say, "Get up, you're giving your seat away," okay? And I grew up with my dad and my grandpa who said, "You hold the door for women." I remember being at the mall and I'm holding the door for this lady and she says, "I can do it myself." And I said, "Well, I know, but my grandpa's in heaven looking down on me. And if I don't hold this door for you, he's going to beat me up later." You know what I mean? Like I think we need to reinsert in our culture honor. Hey, I think we ought to honor parents. I think our kids ought to honor their teachers. Where are the teachers? Come on, downtown and south. Raise your hand if you're in any way in the education system in our culture. Come on, let's honor our teachers. Can we do that? Come on, honor our teachers. It used to be back in the day that if you told your mom that you had a problem with your teacher, you had two problems, one with your teacher and one with your mom. So I'm just telling you, I would take the teacher side. I don't think we're teaching our kids much when we, how many know you got to learn to honor authority? You just do. Hey, every weekend, downtown and south, we have law enforcement that are part of offering traffic flow, parking, and safety for our campuses. Can we thank God for law enforcement, right? Honor. Thankful for them. Thankful for them. A couple of years ago, somebody shot a firecracker and hit the lawn and started burning in the lawn behind the church. And guess what? When we called the fire department, they came. How many are grateful that if there's a fire, your brother doesn't have to put it out, right? There's somebody who knows what they're doing, right? Yeah. And man, I just want to say this weekend, that there needs to be, I think, a resurgence of honor in our culture. And let me say one thing that I know will not be popular. I think you ought to have honor for sometimes the office of leadership, even if you don't prefer the person in leadership. So here's what I'm saying. Sometimes the guy or gal you want in the White House is going to get in there, and sometimes they're not. But I think we ought to honor people in delegated authority in our culture. I really think that's a biblical principle. Saul was not worthy of honor. I mean, he had tried to kill David, but David's like, you're still in a place of authority. I'm going to honor authority. And in fact, here's what the Bible says, Romans 12 and verse 10. Come on, let's read this out loud together, downtown and south. Come on, let's read it out loud together. Here we go. Ready? Outdo one another in showing honor. Yeah. So like here, the Bible literally tells us that if we're going to get competitive about anything, it ought to be showing honor to other people. No, you go first. No, you go first. No, you go first. I insist. I honor you. I honor you more. No, somebody cuts in front of you in the coffee line at church. No. You go. I see a new brew coming. You know what I mean? Like, what if we competed against one another in showing honor? Where are the competitive people? Come on, downtown and south. Come on, raise your hand if you're competitive, okay? This ought to be the competition, outdoing one another in showing honor. Like, I'm gonna be a person of honor. In fact, and I'll say this, and I know a bunch of our students are on retreat, but the only one of the 10 commandments that says you'll live longer is if you honor your father and mother. Literally, Exodus, it's in the Bible. Ephesians quotes it. Honor your father and mother that it may go well with you, or you may live long in the land. Or as my mom said it, if you don't honor me, I might end your life early. You know what I mean? Like, come on, outdo one another in showing honor. In fact, what would it be like if we competed in showing honor? That doesn't mean you agree with everyone or don't speak truth to power or can't be involved politically. I'm not saying any of that. I'm just saying I think there ought to be a resurgence of honor. And I was thinking about this idea of competition, and it got me thinking, I don't know if you've noticed this, but there are some Olympic sports that I didn't even know existed. Have you ever been watching the Olympics and you're like, that's a thing? In fact, I saw this. Rope climbing is an Olympic sport. And I thought this was easy. There were some ropes on Virginia Beach, on the beach this summer, and I was just like, I'll climb to the top. And I didn't. It's harder than it looks. So now I'm a fan of rope climbing. There's another one. This used to be called synchronized swimming, but now they now call it artistic swimming. Isn't this just amazing? They spin around and do everything. I mean, just incredible. I don't know if you haven't seen this next one. It's one of my favorites. You got to YouTube it sometime after church, but it's one of my favorite. What is speed walking, fast walking? Have you ever YouTubed this? It's like grown adults doing the weirdest wiggle. The rule is your heel and your foot have to be touching, so you can't lift them. And so it's just a bunch of adults like doing. I challenge any of you to a speed walk after. It's just amazing. In fact, this is not a lie. After the 8:15 service, a guy came up to me who said his daughter placed in the like teenage bracket of some huge competition in speed walking. And I said, I'm so sorry if that was offensive. And he's like, no, you're totally right. It's very funny. And then he told me a lot of the rules and why it's really important. And I really believe that. But just YouTube speed walking, it will make your day. I'm telling you. And then there, every once in a while you come across an Olympic sport that you think, I am this close to being a gold medalist. The other time I'm sitting on my couch and I thought I could have placed. Anybody ever seen this? Come on, somebody shout out, what's it called? Come on, curling. This is just, you're just sweeping ice. I mean, aren't you just sitting on your couch going, I could totally place for our country if I knew that was like a thing. Scripture says that we're going to compete in anything. We could actually compete to outdo one another in showing honor. Now, let me say this doesn't mean allowing for spiritual abuse or physical abuse or anything like that. It's not about honoring people in authority no matter what. No. But it's saying, what if I understood that God has certain ways that He's ordered society? And that I understand that if I operate within the confines of that, those principles, it brings me blessing and our culture good. And I think we ought to be a people that restore honor. Hey, we're living in a culture where men have objectified women. How many think we ought to restore honor in the way we treat women? Come on, somebody, right? We ought to restore honor in the way we treat teachers. We ought to restore honor in the way we just outdo one another. David had every reason. Think about if anybody had a reason to say, big deal, let's remove Saul. Get him off the throne. But David had a sense of like, if God put him there, who am I? Romans 13 says that the governing authorities were put over us for our good. That's what honor is. Honor is, listen, I know the speed limit says that because there has to be rules on the road. If there were no rules on the road, how many know we'd have problems, right? So like all honor is saying, I understand there are systems set up by God, delegated authority to bring God glory and all of us good. And so I'm going to be a person, rather than seeing the bad side of everything, I'm going to see the good side of everything. I'm going to restore honor. I shared this about a year ago, but it's kind of a way of helping it stick in our brain, okay? So I wrote a little song for us today, okay? Here it is. Ready? So here's how we honor, and I'm going to ask for some participation. Here we go. Come on. First of all, we honor what? We honor authority, people in delegated authority. We honor up. Not only that, though, we honor what? We honor down. So not just honor people up, but we honor down. This means we don't treat people who have lower positions in a different way. This means we treat everyone with respect. That's a test of honor, is when you treat somebody that isn't high or lofty, when you treat them with respect, we've understood the principle of honor. So we ought to honor up, honor down. Watch, this is so clever. This is so clever. This is so clever. You're going to love it. Honor all around. So it goes like this. Honor up, honor down. Honor all around. Honor up, honor down. Come on, I'm gonna what? I'm gonna honor all around. I want you to do one more thing with me today before I turn it over to downtown. I want you to join me in the song that I've written here today. So I'm gonna ask you to do something undignified with me this weekend. I just spun around. I think we can too. So if you love the Lord, stand with me, okay? Come on downtown, let's stand up. And if you can't spin around, don't try, because we don't need anyone falling over or anything like that. Okay, so here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna honor up, honor down, and then we're gonna honor all around, okay? And so we're gonna do that together twice. Isn't this so fun? Come on, help me. We're gonna honor up, honor down. Come on, honor all around. Some of you are still spinning. You should be done by now. The slowest spin. You are not joining the Olympics. Okay, one more time, and then I'm going to turn it over to downtown. Come on, we're going to come on out loud today like we mean it. Come on, we're going to what? We're going to honor up. We're going to, come on, let's do it. We're going to honor all around. I'm turning it back over to downtown.